Please put your hands together for David Heinen.
So this is the story of my elementary school crush. Her name was Anne. That's A-N-N-E. I want to make that clear. You needed that extra E, okay? It's like the E at the end of the word old. This is straight up Shakespearean stuff. She's a classy elementary school lady, right? So I crushed on Anne from kindergarten on. I can't ever remember crushing on anyone else. I was a very monogamous elementary school kid. So let me just give you an anecdote to demonstrate the depth of my crush. Second grade. Okay, think about that. Second grade. Like, you got the blackboard, you got the teacher. There's probably like 28 or 30 of us in the class. So like 5 rows of 6, 6 rows of 5, whatever. We're in social studies, because you're always in social studies in elementary school. I'm in the second row in the middle of the class. Anne, my elementary school crush, she's behind me to my right, okay? She's probably like second row from the back. So teacher, does anybody want to read? As y'all remember, everyone always wants to read. I wanted to read. Anne gets called on. And you remember, getting called on to read was like winning a Congressional Medal of Honor. It was like the greatest thing in the world. Anne gets called on. What do? Everyone else in the class, just picture this, is just, following along in the book with their little 7-year-old finger. Not me. This was an opportunity. I turned to look back. Like I'm talking like smash my knees into the desk, like crane my neck, just stare at this girl while she's reading. She turns beet red. I remember that. To her credit, though, not just a classy lady, intelligent too. She did not falter in her reading at all, despite all this male attention. And I remember this because afterwards, like at recess or something, Anne's best friend, Anna, that was a whole thing, Anne and Anna, try saying it 5 times fast. Anna takes me aside and makes sure that I know that was weird, what I did. I was flabbergasted, like, what? And I remember it so clearly because Anna, at this point, still had a little bit of a speech impediment, had a little trouble with her R's. We've only been talking for 4 years at this point. We're 7, so I don't fault her for it. When she said weird, it wasn't weird, it was weird, okay? W-E-E-U-D, weird. So that soundbite will stick in my mind forever. That was weird. So I'll tell you the end of the story of the crush. In 6th grade, I asked Anne out. I did it. She turned me down flat. Turned me down cold, but I'm telling you, the feelings were mutual. I really believe that. Because what she said was her parents wouldn't allow it. In 6th grade, we're 12, right? So parents are still a thing. And her parents wouldn't allow it. How can you fault someone for that, right? This girl is classy, she's intelligent, she's virtuous, right? She's trying to do right by her parents. And as we all know, in the Aristotelian model, virtue inextricably linked with beauty, right? Just saying. Anyway, at the end of 6th grade, I switched schools. I never see any of my elementary school people again. Until 10 years later, an even decade, who should friend me on Facebook, thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, but Anne, my elementary school crush. Long story short, we get lunch at Panera. I haven't seen this girl in 10 years. And like, if you're 40 and you haven't seen someone in 10 years, big deal. Like, you had kids, you blinked, 10 years passed. I haven't seen this girl from 12 to 22. That's middle school, high school, and college. Like, those are the years that make you who you are. When I walk into Panera, I got 2 thoughts. One, I'm just curious. Like, who did she become? She could have become anyone. 2, of course, I'm wondering, will there be a spark, right? I mean, think about it. Elementary school crush, 10-year hiatus, and then you live happily ever after, right? 3 hours later, lovely lunch, lovely girl, really great conversation, no spark. No spark. We get real chummy, we're like exchanging book recommendations, but it's really hard to describe. It's like, I kind of flashed back to being in elementary school almost. Like, it was just kind of fun and bubbly, but to think about her like in a romantic way, in a sexual way, it almost felt like what's the word when you're sexually attracted to children? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Maybe not something to shout out in a crowded room of people, but no, yeah, absolutely. It was just like, it just felt inappropriate. I don't know, it was very bizarre. At the same time, though, I really enjoyed talking with her. I wanted to keep getting to know her, and over the course of the next year and a half, we developed a friendship, and hanging out with her was like, again, it was just, it was almost like she opened this portal to my past. I'm remembering like people and sights and sounds that I'd completely forgotten, and there's something so warm and comforting about it. It was wonderful. I didn't want it to end, and had other ideas. So we go to the art museum. After our time at the art museum is done, we're outside, we're about to go our separate ways. She's going this way, I'm going this way. We parked in different places. So I'm trying to be a gentleman. Can I walk you to your car? She says, well, actually, I have to tell you something. I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, I think I'm about to start seeing someone. And I'm like, okay. Like, I was about to say, like, tell me about him. And she's like, but before I could say that, she interjects. She's like, yeah, so I don't think we should see each other anymore. And I'm like, wait. Internally, I freak out. I'm like, wait, did she think that we were... Because, again, I'm not even attracted. Like, our relationship has been completely platonic. Like, the most I've given her is like the butt-out grandma hug. Like, she's getting grandma hugs. What could she have misconstrued? So I'm reeling. I'm trying to be diplomatic. I'm trying to salvage the situation. And I'm like, oh, like, I hope that I didn't give you the impression that I was interested in you romantically. She's tactful enough to recognize, and she's like, oh, no, you made your intentions of friendship very clear. She said those words. And I'm like, I did? But, so long story short, Anne, again, this is a virtuous girl. If she's even on the cusp of dating someone, she's not going to speak to another man, which I don't really get, but I respect. Because again, like I said, in the Aristotelian model, so we go our separate ways. I'm still scrambling. I'm like, well, I hope I get to see you again. Another butt-out hug. We say goodbye, potentially for the last time. And she walks this way, I walk this way. And I'm still reeling, and I'm just like, internally I'm thinking, like, what just happened? Like, did I just get dumped? Like, did I just get friend dumped? Like, I'm reeling. Involuntarily, I'm walking this way. I turn to look back. And in that moment, I flashed back to second grade when I turned to look back in social studies class. And the same thought came to my mind that at this point just applies to my childhood at large. I turned to look back and I just thought, that was weird. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Please put your hands together for Tom Berry.
All right, guys. Before I get started, I want to poll the audience. So I've actually got two stories I could choose from. Story one, it's recent, it's raw, it might be relatable. It's all right. Story number two continues this young love theme. I call it Of Haircuts and Heartbreak, 7th grade tale. So I don't know if you guys have a preference. Number two. Oh, we'll do the old cheer. We'll do the old cheer. Okay. Number one, serious shit. All right. All right. Number two, getting my heart crushed. All right. Number two. It sounds like number two is the winner. Let me start my timer here, and we'll get it going.
Oh, your timer started a minute ago.
Oh boy. All right. We'll add that to the list here. So, all right, 7th grade. I'm at the middle school dance. You guys remember how those go. I think all the guys are standing over here, checking out the cute girls. The girls are all segregated, doing their own thing. I see Monica Bauer across the way. She's looking real cute, you know. So I think some of my buddies are, egging me on, like, "Hey man, you gotta go talk to these girls. Let's start dancing." So I'll talk a little bit about the relationship. The candle burned really bright when it burned. I'll tell you that. So go up to Monica. I'm like, "Hey, you want to dance?" For whatever reason, she says yes. So let me set a little backdrop here. So at this time, I had a unique hairstyle. It wasn't that unique. At the time, the kind of thing was, forward in the front and then spike up a little bit in the front. You know what I'm talking about? But I took it to another level. So this is the first time I'm saying this in public, but I can't believe I'm saying this. But my mom, she had this hair curler, and me and my brother, we'd sneak in and we'd be like, "Okay, we'll add a little more pop, a little more flair to this hairstyle." We'd add just a tiny bit of curl. Dude, it was money. It was money. So this comes into the story later. So, I know I have a pretty fly hairstyle, so I have the courage to go up and talk to Monica Bauer, ask her to dance. She agrees. We start dancing. It's like that 12-inch rule, and you're feeling it. You're feeling it. I think it becomes a 10-inch thing, and then maybe you get down to 9. It's getting pretty intimate there. So I think she rests her head on my shoulder, and I'm like, "Oh my God, it's Monica Bauer." So at this moment, it's the greatest moment of my life. And I'm like, "Hey, Monica, you want to be my girlfriend?" She says yes. So, we keep dancing. I think we might get to 6 inches, and the chaperone's 12 inches. And we go our separate ways. At this time, 7th grade, I don't really know what being a boyfriend means. What are you supposed to do? Do you just call each other or go hold hands? I don't really know. So I go home for the weekend. Don't talk to her at all. Don't call her. Don't text her. Nothing like that. But, okay, so another aside. A couple weeks before the school dance, there'd been this new kid who transferred to school, Jeff. Jeff was that dude was cool, man. Everyone loved this guy. He's the new transfer. He's the hot new thing. So I remember I'd had a conversation with Jeff. We were on the soccer team together, and he's like, "Hey, man, I like your hair." You know what I do with my hair? I cut my own hair. I'm like, "Wow, that's cool, Jeff. I want to cut my own hair too." So I go home. I'm already well versed in borrowing my parents' hair styling products and utensils or utility, whatever. So I'm looking at my hair. I'm like, "It looks pretty good, but there's a little bit poking up in the back. Maybe I can clean that up a little bit." So I grab my dad's razor, and I'm just trying to do a little. I'm just looking at the front mirror, just the front mirror. You guys can tell where this is going, So I'm cleaning it up a little bit. I'm like, "Oh yeah. Maybe curl a little bit there, just to make it as good as can be." I think I look great. My parents get home a little bit later. They look at me, and my dad's like, "What did you do? What have you done?" I'm like, "I cut my own hair. It looks good." So long story short, I'd cut a huge bald spot in the back of my head. It was mortifying. I had a few options. Really, actually, I didn't have any options. So I had, keep this huge bald spot on my head. Do you guys remember that hairstyle where I think it's hopefully non-existent anymore, but you'd basically shave your head and then you'd have the bangs in the front? I didn't do that, thankfully. I cut it all off. My dad cut it all off, and I'm just weeping. I'm like, "Damn you, Jeff! Why, Jeff?" So, next Monday rolls around. I'm like, "Well, shit, I've got a girlfriend, and it's Monica Bauer. This is gonna be great." But I'm really embarrassed. I've lost my my signature curvy flare, and I have to face the music at school and see what happens. So, show up. I think I'm wearing a hat. We're waiting for classes to start. Who do I spy? My lady in the distance. What's up, Monica? We say hi. She gives me a hug. And then I take off my hat. I still remember this to this day. She recoils in horror. She's like, oh my God, what has happened, I go from just this boy band looking little Filipino man to this bald looking little Filipino man. So the game has changed. So she recoils in horror, and I just watch her saunter away. My heart is breaking. So later that day, because these are how breakups go in middle school, a couple of her friends come up to me and they're like, Tom, Monica she wants to break up with you. I just put my hat back on and walk away dejected. And really, that's it. I want to say there's a moral to this story, but really, there's not. So I think back on that, and out of all the breakups, there have been sadder breakups, there have been more intensive breakups, but Monica is the one that got away from me, and to this day, I'm still picking up the pieces. So, thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you, Tom. I am really happy and very pleased to welcome our next storyteller to the stage, Alexandria Delcourt.
Thank you. Okay. So, when I was 24, I got my heart broken in a real way for the first time. And this was someone that I was, totally madly in love with, only he was still in love with his ex, and I kind of knew, but, you're a little bit in denial, and it was real healthy. And anyway, that ended, and I was completely crushed, and my world was over, and the whole thing. So a few months later, I was lonely, and I was not in a great place, so I started, going out with this guy that I knew, just wanted comfort, And I had known him a long time. He was a friend of mine, but I didn't really like him that much. But it was just, just the thing that you do. And anyway, I still wasn't in a great place a few months later. And if you've lived here in Madison a long time, you know that sometimes, especially when you're not in a great place, Madison can start to feel really claustrophobic. You can't go anywhere without seeing someone or having some memory of some place. And that's what was happening. So I called him up one day and I said, I have to leave. I have to get out of here right now. We have to get out of Madison right now. And to his credit, he was like, great, let's go. Where do you want to go? And I didn't know, but I was 24, recently graduated college, and I had a car. And I wasn't gonna ask my mom's permission. And we're just gonna go. So we got in the car and we're St. Louis sounds good. It's a good driving distance. It's not too close. We don't know anyone there, and it's not that far. So we're cool, let's go. So we get in the car, start driving to St. Louis, and on the way, it's 6 hours or something. On the way, it starts pouring rain, torrential pouring rain. And my car starts doing this thing. I don't know what it is, but the highway, right? And it starts going like that. And I don't know what that is, but I just assumed it was hydroplaning, right? And so I pulled over to the shoulder, and I thought everything was fine, so I didn't pull over that far. We were just kind of right over that line, and I turned the car off, and I turned it back on. I was very smart. And it won't turn on. And so it's night, it's dark, it's pouring, we're not far over the shoulder, and the car won't start, and I have no idea where I am, because we haven't reached St. Louis, and we're just kind of in Illinois somewhere. And, I don't have a smartphone or anything like that, because it was a while ago, and So I have two options at this point. I can either call my mother, because my mom is very Filipino and she would be super anxious, and I'm not gonna do that. And the other option is I can call the cops. So I called 911, even though it didn't really seem like an emergency. I just didn't know what else to do. So I called 911 and I'm trying to tell them I don't know where I am. But I sort of remember the last town that we passed, and so we're somewhere past that. And I turned my flashers on, of course. And the cops don't know where we are, and it takes them a long time to find us. And after about 30 minutes, 45 minutes of the flashers going on, the battery dies. So the flashers don't work anymore, and it's still pouring rain. And so we're like, okay, we can't wait in the car anymore because there's semis going past us. We have to leave the car and go wait in the ditch. And I had an umbrella, which was good. And so we're in the ditch, in the pouring rain, waiting for a tow truck or a policeman or something to come and find us. And the guy that I was with, he didn't have very much travel experience. Luckily I did, but he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to troubleshoot travel issues, and we had also just called the cops, and it's also the middle of the night, and he's also black. And so he starts chain smoking, and you remember they had those little Dell laptops that they used to have? He had one of those, and so he was nervous, so he opened up the laptop and he starts playing solitaire and chain smoking. And and I tell him no, if I need to charge my phone, I'm gonna need your laptop, stop. And so he does. Anyway. After, I don't even know how long, another half hour, 45 minutes or something, the cops eventually do come with a tow truck. And we get in the tow truck and we're like, okay, we're gonna be fine. Turns out we were somewhere north of Springfield, which is pretty far south in Illinois, anyway. And so we're in the tow truck and he's gonna take us to a place, car place, I don't know. And then, so we're driving and I finally feel better, but then he gets a call on his phone, the driver, while we're in the car with him, telling him that his wife has just had a heart attack, and that he had to go to the hospital right now. And so he tells us I can't take you to the car place. I have to go to the hospital. And we're yeah, obviously. And so he's but I can't just leave you here, so how about I take you to my house? And we're okay. So he takes us to his house, and he's I'm gonna call a coworker of mine, I'll have him come get you. And then he left. And so we're waiting in this tow truck at some guy's house. And again, another 30, 45 minutes, another guy shows up. And he's a young guy with his girlfriend, and they're gonna take us to a place. So we're fine, whatever. They take us to this little place, AAA approved, and he says it's perfect because there's a hotel right behind the car shop, because obviously car shop wasn't open at the time. And so he takes us there, he drops us off, and we go into this hotel, and it's the kind of place where you go in and you have to get your room key behind a plexiglass window and slide the money under the thing, and we're whatever, we don't have anywhere else to go. So I gave him my credit card, and we get to the room, and it's disgusting. There's a gash across the comforter, and there's stains on the walls, and it smells awful. And the mini fridge is just hanging open, and there's stuff in it, and it smells terrible, right? And the more we look around, the more uncomfortable I'm getting. And I tell the guy that I'm with, I can't stay here. This isn't gonna be okay. And I made him go back down to the office and give the key back and get our money back and all that stuff. And he said, he did it, which is good. And then he came back up and he said, it's fine. I told the guy my girlfriend wasn't comfortable and all these things. And I was whoa, not your girlfriend, but okay. So we don't have anywhere else to go, and we don't have a car. So we have no choice, really, at this point, other than to just put our stuff into a plastic bag and start walking down the highway. Again, it's pouring rain, and we just start walking and stopping in gas stations along the way, because at least it wasn't dark. There was some stuff around there. And I don't really know how long it was, but we walked and walked until we finally found a microtel Inn and Suites. That's a thing, right? And we get there, and we're okay, finally, this is gonna be okay. This is a good place. And I give them my card, except that I was 24 and super poor, And I had already used my card at the last hotel, and even though they refunded it, the funds weren't going to go back in immediately, so my card gets declined. And so then he's like, I got it. He pulls out his credit card, gives it to him, and he's also 24 and kind of a scrub, and his card gets declined too. So at this point, we are completely out of options, right? We just have nowhere to go, so I called my mother. And she was understandably appalled, but she paid for the room, right? She paid for the room, and she paid for a pizza, and we were good. And so we get into the hotel, and I'm a mess, right? And the only person I want to talk to is my ex, because even though we broke up, we're still friends. And so I call him, right? And I'm telling him all about what's happened today. Only I'm not saying we did this, me and this other guy, right? I just keep saying, like, I tried to drive to Springfield, and I got stuck, and I had to call a tow truck, and I did this, and I did that. I'm totally not acknowledging that the other guy was even there right in the room with me listening to the conversation. And I just was too young, I wasn't old enough to understand what it meant, when people say that hurt people, and so what was happening is I was in love with this guy who was in love with his ex. Meanwhile, this other guy is in love with me, and we're all having a great time. And I was doing to him exactly what my ex had done to me, and I didn't get it until years later. And anyway, so it wasn't a good time. It took about 3 days for the car to get fixed, and in the meantime, we didn't have any way to get anywhere, and Springfield sucks, so we ended up hanging out at the Barnes & Noble across the street quite a lot, and my mom paid for the hotel rooms, and she paid for our snacks, and she paid for our coffee, and, just wanted us to get home. And we didn't talk a ton during the 3 days that we were there. We just were there, not happy. And after 3 days, I get a call that the car is finally fixed and we can go home. So we walk back over to the car place, and I call my mom so she can pay for it. And we get the car and start driving home. And again, just not really talking, because we don't really have much to say to each other anymore. And 5-6 hours later, something like that, we roll back into Madison, only it doesn't feel so claustrophobic this time. It feels safe and familiar, and I know people here. And we don't really talk about it. We just come back. He goes home to his apartment. I go home to my apartment, and we just knew it was over. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandria. I once kicked a girl out of my car in the pouring rain. Just bragging. No, I don't know why that story reminded me of that, but I had a crush on this girl for years, and we would hang out all the time. We went to church together, and so we would hang out all the time. And then I introduced her to my best friend Ian. And whenever me and this girl would hang out, I'm going to try so hard to not say her name. She would say, well, we should see if Ian's doing something. And I was like, yeah, we should, because we're like the three amigos, but like me and you got something special. And like the whole time she was like, yeah, we're the three amigos, and me and Ian, we got something special. And so I come to find out she likes Ian. We go out for coffee, and it's pouring rain out. And this is high school. This is like sophomore year of high school, a little melodramatic for me, and I am just like devastatedly heartbroken. And so like I said, we go out for coffee, and we're driving back, and like we had been having this conversation of like, oh, what do we do? Like, can we stay friends? And blah, blah, blah. And so then I turn to her while I'm driving her home, and I say, I just feel like you've been using me this whole time so that you can hang out with Ian. And she went, yeah. Like points for honesty, right? And so I pulled the car over and said, get out. Please put your hands together for Daniel Rivera. Yes, we are fucking weird for sure. Any of our friends can tell you that. One day, I got married. It was June of 2006. 2006 was a very busy year. Married in June. By July, my wife tells me, I don't think we should have gotten married, and I don't feel about you the same way that I did. Granted, we had been together 7.5 years. Also, maybe you should have told me a month before, right before we spent all this money on our wedding. August comes around, we're in counseling, trying to save our relationship. September comes around, and I find out that although she had been telling me the whole time there was no one else, there was somebody else. That somebody else actually had existed since May of that year. Yes, the same May that comes before June, the same month that we got married. October comes around, I move out. November comes around, and it really sucked because it's the time where you want to be around family for the holidays. I was missing my wife and my stepdaughter. December really sucked because I turned 30. Christmas Eve, woe is me. I was really sad, and it's all her fault, or at least that's how I felt anyway. 2007 came around, and I was feeling better. I met a bunch of people. I got my hopes back up, and I was feeling good. And we had actually gotten back in communication again, and chatting on Instant Messenger, and talking about what could be, and what if, and maybe there's a possibility of us kind of rekindling what we had. And so she was all for it, and it was great, and I was feeling good, and I was like, a new, better me. And we had this opportunity coming up where one of my closest cousins, who was also one of her best friends, was having a birthday coming up in March of 2007. And so I was like, hey, maybe I'll see you there. Okay, well, yeah, I'll see you there. We can chat and we can talk, and maybe we can kind of try to get this thing going again. So the day comes, I'm feeling great. I'm all, dressed up to the T's. I got my cologne. You know how that works. Just, I'm feeling good that night. I'm going to go in, and I'm like, that's it. We're going to go, and I'm going to win back the heart of the woman that I love, that I'm supposed to be with. Meanwhile, she's still my wife. We hadn't divorced at that time. So we go, and it's a great night. We're having fun. We're drinking and dancing, and we're on the dance floor to some reggaeton, and we're grinding a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, she's feeling me for sure. And so the end of the night comes. This was in New York City, and bar time is 4 o'clock. So 4 o'clock rolls around. It was also daylight savings, so it was really 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So that was an extra hour of drinking in there, but either way. And everybody's getting ready to leave. My cousin and all of our other friends are leaving, and they're driving away in their cars. And I'm a true New Yorker who doesn't have a car. Or I was a true New Yorker who didn't have a car, so I was taking a subway, as was my wife. And I said, hey, if you're going to the subway, why don't we ride together? She lived downtown, I lived uptown. I can escort you, kind of, trying to do the gentlemanly thing. And so she looks back at me, and she says, she didn't have to say anything. I saw it in her face and her eyes. She says, I'm sorry, Daniel, I'm not going home. I knew what that meant. I hung my head down. Okay, I got it. Turned around, started walking. Before I head into the subway, I said, no. I stopped. I turned around, and I came back and said, hey, no. We can't just end it like this. Like, you can't just be communicating with me, telling me these things, and then come in and turn around and telling me something else. Let's talk about this now. 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of Queens Boulevard. And so she comes out, and I'm telling her, what's up? After everything we'd been talking about, you said, yeah, there's a chance of us getting together, and we were looking forward to this, and now you're just going to turn around and go, to somebody else's house? And she said, I thought I could, but I can't. And I said, well, what is it? What's wrong? We were in love. Do you love him? Yes, I love him. It's like, well, you loved me too. Like, after 7.5 years, you can't just turn around and then drop all of that. And then in that moment, like, in my mind, I was like thinking back to many of the movies that I'd seen, and I was like, all she needs is just this one passionate kiss that's going to make her remember, and it's just going to like, oh, I know now. What have I been thinking this whole time? So, so I lean in for this kiss, and at the same time, she's leaning back away from it. I'm like, oh, that hurt so much. I was sure that was going to work. That was going to be the foot-popping kiss that like brought it all back to her, And so no kiss, and then she says,
I'm sorry, Danny, I have to go. So she starts walking across Queens Boulevard, and I'm there, and I look over my shoulder, and I see across the street there's a black car, tinted windows, parked, idle, waiting for her. And I was like, wait, is that him? Him, we all know who him is. I had not actually confronted him or met him in person, but I knew that was him. I ran across the street ahead of her to get to the car before she can get to the car. He's sitting in the car. I know it was him because even though the windows were tinted and I was banging on the glass trying to get in and cursing at him with every word and book, I could see his smug face on the other side of that tinted window smiling back at me like, I got what you want, there's nothing you can do about it. She couldn't get into the car because hitting that unlock button meant opening the door for her and opening the door for me. So as I'm trying to get in, she's trying to get in, nobody was getting in. She says, just drive away. So I said, yeah, drive away, you motherfucking blah, 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 blah. Everything I can think of. He drives away, and I was like, yeah. And so I run up to her, I said, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me? What is your problem? Why are you doing this to me? And she's like, I don't know. And then in that moment I turn around, and sure, I see the car is parked a block away. And I'm so focused on the car, so I said, you know what? He thinks he's going to be slick driving away and only parking a block away. I'm going to get him this time. So as I start running towards the car, I see like a broken down police barricade, with the two triangles and the wood in the middle. And like all in one quick motion, like I planned this ahead of time, I run up on the driver's side, I grab the triangle, and with one swift motion, I swing it while yelling, how you like me now, bitch? I swing. The glass shatters in super slow-mo to reveal the very scared face of a young woman sitting behind the wheel of a car that was not his. Yes. I'm looking for words to say. I can't even say. I look up. My wife is nowhere to be found. My friends, my cousin, they're nowhere to be found because they had left like long ago. Like I said, I thought we were the only two fools in the middle of, at that time of night. Turns out this young woman was sitting in her car waiting for her mother to take her to the hospital. And I was like, I'm sorry, I thought this was my wife's boyfriend's car. I know it sounds ridiculous even when I say it now, 10 years later. And I was trying to explain it to her. I was like trying to comfort her, and she was like, didn't even want to look at me or talk to me or let me touch her. And she called the cops. You gotta call the cops. I sat on the curb, and cops showed up. I explained everything that happened, everything I did. We gotta take you to jail, right? Yeah, go ahead. Put my hands behind my back. Took me to jail. Spent the night in jail. The next day, about 15 hours in jail. And I remember then standing in front of the judge, and as I'm kind of telling my story and saying it, and again, the words, I thought it was my wife's boyfriend's car. I was like, what? That's some Jerry Springer shit, and I'm in the middle of this right now. And so I was just like feeling, so I was focused on my emotions. I was focused on my hurt. I was focused on everything that she had been doing to me, everything that he had been doing to me, everything that everybody else had been doing to me, that when it then came turn for them to talk about what I did to this woman, and I could imagine sitting in my car in the middle of the night, waiting to take, it's bad enough I gotta take my mom to the hospital, then some crazy guy starts calling me a bitch while he breaks my window. Oh my goodness, she must have been so terrified. And even when I tried to comfort her and she like shuddered and moved away, I was so focused on what everybody's actions were doing to me that I had a total disregard for what my actions were doing to someone else. And it was a lesson that still stands today with me when I think about to that day with my ex-wife, that I need to focus on what makes me happy and focus on doing more of what makes other people happy and stop trying to get even or get back something that was clearly not mine. I even got a tattoo that says, focus on all that you love. And it's a reminder to me that ultimately I have control over what I can bring to other people, the effect that I have on other people, and I need to focus on that and stop focusing on the pain and hurt that other people may bring to me in my way. That's my story.
Great job. Thank you, Daniel. Man, if I had a nickel for every time I broke out the wrong window. Please put your hands together for Jonah Solheim.
All right, so I was a little bit of a late bloomer in the romance department. By the time I was 14, I had dated nobody, and I thought all of my friends had had girlfriends at some point, or girlfriends or boyfriends at some point or another. I thought it's about time I get myself into the dating pool. So I started in social studies class, actually, where apparently everything starts. There was a girl who sat in front of me. She had very nice long hair. I thought that was very nice. I had never met her before. I had never seen her before. Most of the kids that I went to school with went through elementary school, middle school, high school with me, and it was kind of interesting to see somebody new. And so I got to know her a little bit and eventually got up the courage to ask her out, which was a huge deal for young me who had hair still and was like cool about everything. I had all life ahead of me. And asked her out and did all the good boyfriend things. We went to movies that my dad drove us to. We went to like festival things that her town had. She lived a few minutes away from me, and they had different kind of fireworks festivals in the summer and or in the, I guess, early fall season. And it was going pretty well for about a month and a half. And I had met her mom. I had done the whole thing. I'm a very good parent pleaser. I like to make friends with the parents so that they don't think that I'm awful for their child, to this day still. And it's important to know that I met her mom because I get a text from this girl that I was dating about a month and a half into our relationship. And she says, "Do you know somebody named Arvid Denner?" And I stop and I go, "Well, yeah, he's my great-grandfather." And it's not so strange that she would know the name because he was from my hometown, and he went to my high school, and his picture is up in our lunchroom. And he's a fixture in the community. He was a volunteer firefighter. It was a whole deal. And so I texted her back, "Well, yeah, he's my great-grandfather." This is a lot of people to say this to. I did not expect this crowd. She texts me back, "That's so funny, he's my great uncle." A little bit of backstory. My great-grandfather and my great-grandmother divorced when my grandma was young, and they both remarried, and my great-grandfather had another family, and my great-grandmother remarried Arvid Denner. Now, he had another family as well, and his wife had died in a car accident along with one of his daughters, and so he remarried when he was a little bit older. So we were not blood related. I want to stress that. Not blood related at all. But she is my step-second cousin. First girlfriend. First person I ever dated in my whole life. This is the first foray into dating. This is my introduction to romance. This is great setup for the rest of my life. So, this is a story about a breakup that didn't happen for another month and a half. Because I had a girlfriend, and I was 14, and it was great to have a girlfriend at 14. You get to go do things, and people think that you're cool when you have a girlfriend in high school. Or so I thought. So I keep up dating her because I have somebody, and it's so nice to have somebody. And I keep thinking in the back of my head, okay, but family reunions? And her mom is gonna, and she knew. Her mom knew the whole time and did not tell either of us. We looked at photo albums of our family. So the actual breakup was not as interesting as this whole thing. I broke up with her on Facebook because I am a coward. And as stated before, a failure as a man. So that's fine. I will give that moniker to myself. That's fine. So I broke up with her on Facebook. We never talked again. And the next year, when we were sophomores in high school, she started dating somebody that I knew very well because he was my actual second cousin. This is not fake, this is real. They have been dating since 2010 and are getting married in Alaska this summer. You can clap, that's fine. Good for them. Yeah, so when my great-grandfather died, which was a couple years ago now, we went to the funeral, and he was from Middleton, so we had the funeral in Middleton. And her mom, this girl's mom that I dated, came up to me, and I had not seen her in a decade. And she said, like, hello, how are you? And I said, hello, it was fine. In line to get food, because it was a Lutheran funeral, so, you know, you have to go eat after the whole thing. In line, someone turns to me and says, are you part of the family? I was like, uh-huh. Yep, I am. So that was my introduction to romance. I don't know if any of you have experienced anything like this. I've never met anybody who has any crazy family stories like that, but I thought that it would be fun to share with all of you tonight. Thank you.
Oh man, Jonah. Do you remember when we started and I said it takes guts to come up here and share? Man, that must have been, that might have been the most gutsy story. I love when you said that you looked at albums of our family. That was the best part of that story. Please put your hands together for Graham Callis.
Okay, so over the course of several months, my goth girlfriend, Jane, had systematically gone through a campaign of converting me from a dorky college kid to a dorky goth college kid. Black clothes, Doc Martens shoes, metal all over me, dyed my hair. It was an abomination. And I had quite soured on the relationship, and then took me about a month to actually build up enough willpower to end the relationship. And I had picked my time to do this. There was an event going on at our student union, and we had some friends there, some mutual friends there, and my idea was to end this relationship, and then I could just slink into the crowd and kind of disappear. Now, one thing I'd like you all to know about Jane is that before she and I became involved, after her first semester at college, she was in a horrific car accident. She suffered a lot of trauma to her head, which put her into a coma. She had about a 20% chance of survival, and she lived, obviously. But she didn't see it that way, and she had told me several times that she felt that it wasn't a 20% chance that she lived and she made it. It was an 80% chance that she should have died, and she didn't. So there were some serious self-esteem issues, probably depression that she was dealing with. And so as I was regurgitating the words to end this relationship with her, it was not unexpected that she would come back at me with a lot of anger and just really nasty words for me. And so I sat there for a while and took it. And then she got up and stormed off. And I sat there and processed that conversation, and something red flagged in my head. And my mission, or my plan to kind of slink into the crowd at this event and find my friends became a find my friends and let's go find her, because I wasn't comfortable with the way that she stormed off and some of the things that she told me. We fanned out to some of the places that I thought maybe she would go on campus. And I was going to make my way back to her dormitory. I stopped at the corner store, the little convenience store we had at the Union, And I asked the student working there, I said, have you seen a girl all dressed in black, pale skin, multicolored hair? She probably would have came by here maybe 15, 20 minutes ago. He said, oh yeah, she stopped in here and she bought a box of no-dose pills, which was caffeine pills. And I thought, what is she gonna try and stay up all night, or what's her goal here? Now, as a funny aside, no-dose was sold on campus at this convenience store, and it was also at one point given out as part of our welcoming packets on campus. And this was a bad idea because to pull an all-nighter one time, I took 4 of them and drank 8 cups of coffee. After the exam, I got back to my dorm room, and I stood in the middle of my dorm room, and I just started bawling. My roommate looked at me, and he said, are you okay? And I said, I don't know if I'm okay. It totally messed me up. Why? So they stopped that practice after my second year there. I got to her dorm. I got let in by her roommate. I told her roommate and the RA, the resident assistant, what was going on. I went down to the dormitory lounge. There was a kitchen off of the lounge, and that's where I found Jane. She was standing over the sink. The box was open. She wouldn't talk to me. She wouldn't tell me how many of these she had taken. It wasn't long after that campus security walked in behind me into the lounge. The RA must have called campus security, let them know what was going on. And we walked Jane back up to her dorm room. While her RA and her roommate sat with her, campus security asked me to step out in the hallway. Now, I don't know if this guy was a big Law and Order fan or something, but he decided to ask me a couple of questions that I wasn't real comfortable with. He said, well, why is she in this state of mind right now? And I said, well, because I just broke up with her about half an hour ago. And he said, did you give her those pills? And I said, really? No, I didn't give her those pills. She bought them on her way back to the dormitory. He said, well, okay, she won't tell us how many she took, so I've called emergency services. They're going to be here. And I said, okay, she's in a really fragile state of mind right now. Can we have them come up without their sirens on? Because I'm worried that that's going to just set her off again. He said, well, I'll see what I can do. It was only a few minutes later that I heard the sirens off in the distance, heralding to all of the college students on campus, come out one and all to the gothest show on earth. And as I walked the red carpet of embarrassment to the ambulance, I couldn't help but wonder, how in the hell did it get to this point? In the back of the ambulance on the way to the hospital, Jane asked me several times, is this it? Are we done? Are you leaving me? And despite the neediness that she was exuding at that moment, and I had this really deep-seated caretaking behavior at that time, I did not reverse my actions from earlier that evening. And it's a good thing that my willpower was as strong that night, because when I look back on that, it really wasn't her, it was me. And I don't mean that in a sense for the end of our relationship, but I mean it more related to the beginning of it, because what I was doing was I was using our relationship to fill a void that I had in myself. A lack of identity, no self-esteem, fear of being lonely, fear of being alone. I was using that relationship to fill those voids. And I was going into that relationship without any kind of self-love. And honestly, if you don't love yourself, how in the hell can you possibly love somebody else? Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Please put your hands together for Ken Fager.
I built up enough courage on March 12, 2005, after several drinks at a house party here in Madison, to tell my coworker that I was madly in love with her. And 7 years later, we got married. We stayed together on the same staff, and it was wonderful. We got our undergraduate degrees together. We got our master's degrees together. We got a dog that was just absolutely wonderful. And the happiest day of my life was getting married to her. And shortly after graduation, she got a job in Charlotte, North Carolina. And being the fool that I was in love, I followed her blindly. I packed up the 18-foot truck and went down there sight unseen. And it was actually a great living situation at UNC Charlotte. It was rent-free, and about a month after moving there, I got the best paying job of my life. And things were on the upswing, and after a while, my wife stopped telling me that she loved me. Oh, she would go through the motions. I would say I love you, and she would say I love you back, but she just stopped. And then this wonderful job, this high-paying job, it turns out my coworkers were abusive, so I would come home after work stressed out, and when I would get home, I would see my dog, but I wouldn't see my wife. One of the things that I was initially attracted to her, one of the things that I was attracted to her by, was that she was a go-getter. She was a people pleaser. Whatever she set her mind to, she was going to accomplish. But that meant when I got home, she wasn't there. And when she was, she would unload about her stressful day. She would tell me about all the people she was helping, and I was truly impressed. But then she would go back to work. Sometimes I would cook dinner, or I would buy her flowers. I never tried to stop romancing her. And then she would get a phone call, and she'd just be gone for several hours, and I would be alone. And my job was terrible, and this was our lives for a while, and eventually I became very depressed, and I was sad, and I was lonely. I would move far away from my family, my friends. I was in a town that I was unfamiliar with, and eventually, one day at work, I just left. I got on a bus, and I checked myself into a hospital. When I got there, I told the doctors, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm lonely. And every few minutes, my brain is telling me, you should kill yourself. When I tried explaining this to my wife, it was our first anniversary, and I wanted that evening to be special, but we ended up fighting. I wanted to move back to Wisconsin. I wanted to see my family. I wanted to see my friends. I had to quit my job. It was too stressful. And she would tell me all the things that I had done wrong in the past 7 years. The list would come out. I just wanted to be told that I was loved. I would tell her I loved you, and she wouldn't tell me she loved me back. And I was dying on the inside, little by little, day by day. That Christmas, we went home, and I wanted to tell my family. I wanted to tell her family, but I didn't want to ruin everybody's good times, so I kept quiet about it, and we went back to Charlotte. I was jobless. I had filed 100 resumes all around town, but nobody was hiring. And I got desperate. And then I put in a resume with this little university on the hill here in Madison, and they hired me. I got my dream job. I went back to Madison. I got to see my family. I got to see my friends. Things were on the upswing. And I tried explaining this to my wife, and I tried to convince her, let's move everything back here where we can be happy. I can see you, I can see my dog, I can see my family, you can see your family, we can see our friends. And she told me how important her job was. I never stopped trying to romance her. I would send her cards, I would take time out of my day. to let her know how much I cared. And I would tell her that I loved her. And she would go through the motions and stop short of telling me, I love you too. And this went on for a long time. Hours turned into days, turned into weeks, turned into months. I loved my wife, but she wouldn't tell me she loved me back. She came to see me for our second anniversary here in Madison. We had a beautiful dinner at Brokash. She brought my dog. I was so happy to see my dog. I was so happy to see her. I'm a photographer, and I had printed out this nice big portrait of us in happier times together, smiling. And I framed it, and I gave it to her. And at the end of the night, I walked her to her car, and I told her I loved her. And I honestly can't remember if she told me she loved me back. She left me in that parking lot. She wished me the best. And I felt so alone, so sad, so depressed, so suicidal, and I just wanted an end to the pain. I just wanted to be loved. I wanted my love to be reciprocated. It was around the holiday time that year that she told me she wasn't coming back. She wasn't going to visit me. And I didn't take it well. And after 2 years of trying to romance my wife, 2 years of telling her that I loved her without it being reciprocated, 2 years without affection, 2 years without intimacy, you know, men who cheat on their wives are scumbags. Absolute scumbags. That is my opinion today, and that was my opinion then. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be held. I wanted to be warm in the cold Wisconsin nights. I wanted that pleasure in my life, and it was wrong. And I felt guilty for sympathizing with the devil of all people. For my third anniversary, I got a letter in the mail saying that I was divorced, and I knew it was coming. I couldn't muster up the strength to go down there for that court date. I would have been a mess. I would have just begged. I would have cried. Probably would have killed myself afterwards. I didn't really want to die. I didn't really want to kill myself. I just wanted the pain to be over. Well, I graduated from 2 UWs, 2. I speak German, and I'm from a family of prolific drinkers from Wisconsin. So when a man gets divorced, he often turns to the bottle. So when I say that I was drinking a lot, try to imagine in your head what that volume was. My doctors saw it coming. And we upped the antidepressants. And you know what the worst thing about antidepressants is? It's the side effects. I put on weight. My dick stopped working. That's true. You know what else was really bad? I couldn't sit for 2 months. That was another side effect. That was actually worse than the dick thing. I know there's not much to laugh about here. Thank you. And another side effect is suicidal thoughts. So I wanted to kill myself even more. It was terrible. I had hit rock bottom. And then we just happened to come across the right one, and I started sleeping again. I started eating right. I felt better about myself. I started working out. I started reconnecting with my art, which has been described as depressing and deals with abandonment and isolation, and it's wonderful, and I love it. makes me happy. I don't give a whatever you think. I reconnected with my family and my friends, and my relationships with them are better than ever. I've made it this far. And to be honest, I haven't had a date in 8 months. Not for a lack of trying, and I'm still trying. More than anything in the world, I just want a woman to tell me, in all sincerity, I love you, so that I can say I love you too.
Thank you, Ken. So, ladies, if you're interested in an angsty artist type whose dick may or may not work, welcome to the Madison Story Slam dating service. I'll be your guide. Here is Frandu Smith.
Thank you. Wow. How many people here have heard my stand-up comedy? Oh, man. Awesome. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry you're here. Because you're going to hear me. You know, I have the tendency, or like walk up the stairs when I go onto a stage, and the host or whoever it is up here, I go and I give him a hearty hug. I'll hug him. Hug him, you know. And you know, sometimes I blurt out, "Wow, man, I love you." One of these days, somebody's going to like, "Oh, I love you too," and it's going to give me a kiss right smack on my lips. And I'm going, "Oh, I didn't mean I love you like that." So one day it happened, you know. Somebody loved me back. I went, wow. Haven't felt that in long time. Long time. And then it turned. It fizzles out, it's okay. But in the mind, it stays right there in the corner of your brain, you know, like somewhere. And then you see him, you see her again. And you go, oh yeah, a year later. And they remind you, remember when I go, oh, right. I remember your eyes. Those freaking eyes. I always look at the eyes because to me they tell me a lot more about the person. I put attention to how they move their fingers, the way they walk, the way they move their hair, what they wear, the way they smile, the way they deal with stress, the way they get mad at you. You know, all those little things count because that's how I get to know a person. So this woman said to me, yeah, remember? And I go, yes, I remember. And that whole thing just like, wow, blew up in my mind. I go, oh yeah, I remember. That was so beautiful. Ah! So she invited me to her place, and I cooked breakfast for her, and it's going real great. And I wrote a poem for her, and then I declared my love for her. I'm in love with you. 2 years after the kiss, you know? And she immediately smiled and said to me, oh no, I don't love you that way. And I went, yeah, well, let me take a step back. Because now my heart is involved, you know? So now it's the brain and the heart, and I'm like, oh, I gotta stop this. And you know what? It took me a long time. I wrote poems about it. I sent them to her. I just didn't know what else to do. I told her, listen, okay, but can we be friends? And she goes, oh yeah, friends is fine. That's okay. Don't worry about it. And I say, hell yeah. Well, that's the basis for marriage. That's how we get to know each other more. This is fantastic. I'll be your friend, right? Oh, yes. And it turns out that friend is where you end up, in the friend zone. I speak English. It took me a long time to understand how to speak it. So I don't speak body language, really. I didn't go to school to learn that. They don't teach you. Somebody goes like that and they mean something. Somebody else does the same thing and they mean something else. You can't tell. So, bam! It turns out that being a friend means you're just an acquaintance. So I'm going to be the best freaking acquaintance ever. Yes, I will send her flowers, your secret admirer. I will send poems, wow, when she doesn't know who it is, I'll typewrite them so that she doesn't know my handwriting. This is going to be great. I know she likes hot chocolate, so I'm going to buy her hot chocolate. I'm going to put it by her door, and then I'm going to run away, and she's going to take that and going to say, wow, must be the secret admirer, and her heart is gonna flutter, and she's gonna take that, and because she loves it, she's gonna open it up in the mornings and make hot chocolate, and yes, that's me, hot chocolate right there. She's drinking it. Wow, I win. You gotta be direct with me. If you don't like something I do, I'm an old man. I'm a little guy. Okay, I'm a little old. I am a freaking stone. I can take your honesty. I lived long enough to understand that it doesn't matter. I don't take it personal. I like people. In fact, I love the good nature of all of you. I want to promote that. If I see you and I like you, I'll tell you. I'll act like I'm your friend because I am. I want to help you with what you need, with what you want, with what you're trying to acquire. Whatever I can do for you, I will help you because that's how I am. That's me. So people run away from me sometimes because, oh, he's chasing me. Oh, what am I going to do? He's an old man. I'm a young little chick. What am I going to do? Boys, men, it's like, wow, this guy is hugging me too strongly. I don't know what to do. Gay guys come to me and they're like, woohoo, and then like, boom, pat me on the freaking butt. And I'm like, hold on. And I tell him directly, no, that's not it. That's a limit. I don't want that. You might want that with somebody else, but not me. Well, tell me. If you don't like me, if you hate me, if you think I'm an idiot, if you think I'm too old, if you think I'm feeble, whatever, just tell me, Frandu, you suck, all right? I don't like your comedy. I don't like your slam stories, whatever. Just like boom, boom. I leave you alone. You don't want me to see you. You want me to disappear. It's okay. So finally, she didn't speak to me ever through all these times and the poems and all that stuff, nothing. But finally, she's like, Frandu, you don't know me. And I'm like, 3 years, 4 years I've been with you. I look at everything you do. Whenever we spend some time, I put attention to everything you do. I know you, and I know you are beautiful. And she, cut me out of the Facebook, took me out of everything. There's no way for me to get in touch with her. And what do? Doesn't matter. I love her. I don't fall in love with a woman because she's pretty or show me her assets. Or because she has the purple hair that she didn't have yesterday. It's now how many lovers she's had. It's not how many plastic surgeries you had. It's no enhancements. It's no tummy tucks, nothing like that. No, it's you inside. And we all have beauty. But if you don't want to share it, I can only go so far. And that's okay. And if you don't want me around, bam, I remember the good qualities you had. And that's what I take with me. It's okay. It's okay. After 20 years of marriage, I told my wife, you know, we do get older. Look at your body, look at mine. And she lost it. She thought I was calling her an old hag. No, it's just the way that things turn out. We get older, we get wiser. We love when we're kids, and now that we are strong enough to love, we can work at it. Now we can go with it. Now we can forgive. Now we can accept. And most important, we can change. Because we want to. So love. Go for it. Lose your mind. Love. But really love. Look at the person for what they have. Wow. It makes you grow so much more. Thank you very much. My name is Frantu.
Thank you, Frandu. Please put your hands together for Shauna Youngdahl.
Guys, it is 13 degrees outside, and my car's heat decided to die. Woo! But yet it's overheating, and I'm just this little girl like, I don't fucking know. If it explodes, at least I'll be warm. I don't know. Troubling times. So I was gonna come here and, of course, tell a story about, one of my relationships that broke up, that ended, but I'm just thinking back to all of my relationships, and I'm just like, Shauna, your streak sucks. Like, you've broken up with people because there's this guy in high school, I broke up with him, and this is gonna sound like shit, and I don't agree with it right now, but I dated someone that I broke up with him because all he wanted to do after school was watch the Ellen Show and go to sleep. That sounds like fucking heaven right now. What's wrong with 18-year-old me? Jesus. Fucking going through some shit back then. What am I, high maintenance? Did I like Jerry Springer better? But then it's funny because I'm actually going through a big breakup right now, and I'm like, do I want to talk about that? Is it too sensitive? But we're also both still trying to make it work because neither of us really want to go back on Tinder, so we're like, please, let's just make this shit work. This is unhealthy, but I don't want to swipe anymore. My thumb's broken. I have no storage on my phone. So I was thinking about something that I could talk about, and of course the theme of breakups, right away we're always thinking about, boyfriends and girlfriends that we've ended our relationships with, but I would also want to make an argument that those breakups of romantic relationships suck, and they're painful, and they're hurtful, and they're impactful. But I want to make an argument that when you're breaking up and losing just a pure friendship, that is just as, if not worse, than losing a romantic partner. This happened to me, and I'm sure it has happened to many of us in this room. It happened to me back with a friend that I had in high school. She was my best friend. And when I say best friend, this was one of those people that just accepted you for who you were no matter what. Embraced your weirdness, embraced your character without a second thought, and not only embraced it, but reciprocated it. This was a friend I had who I would go over to her house for lunch every day, and one day, Shauna had a little accident down there during that special time of the month, got it everywhere, and she looked at me and said, Let me get you a new pair of jeans. Thanks, Jamie. Bled through that shit, too. Girls got a heavy flow. She still stayed with me. So she was my best friend. We did everything together. And then, of course, after high school, we graduate and we go on to college. My first 2 years after high school, we lived in Illinois, so community college was a regular occurrence. And so I stayed back in our local regional area, and I went to community college while she went away and went to the local 4-year, or not necessarily local, about an hour away, 4-year university. It was really heartbreaking to me, but it was that sentimental, oh, you're leaving. This is going to be a new bond for us to share, a new chapter in our friendship lives. And I even remember telling her one night while I was weeping on my dad's back porch, I said, Jamie, when the moon rises in the sky every night, will you promise to look up at it and we'll do it together? And so we'll both be looking at the moon together, and so that'll be our friendship thing every day, so we don't lose touch. I don't remember her responding to that text, but I believe that she did do that. So for the next 2 years, I continued on to community college. She did her 4-year thing. I would go up and visit her. She would come back home and we would hang out here. Things were going pretty great. Then once my 2-year tenure stood up at the community college and I needed to make my transfer to a 4-year to complete my bachelor's degree, I mean, my choices were pretty out there. I could go really anywhere. Not anywhere. I'm not Harvard material. Princeton. And so Jamie called me and said, hey, I know it's about time that you're going to be applying to different universities and stuff. Why don't you come over to Bleep University and live with me and a mutual friend that we both had from high school. That other friend and her were actually best friends. Jamie and I were best friends, but they were also very close friends. And I had known the other girl from high school as well. Come live with us. We need a third roommate, and you can just go to college there. Works out perfect. So of course I get into this, like I would love to live with my best friend and this awesome other girl. And so February of that year, I do everything. We go and sign this lease, and everything starts off perfect, seemingly. Now, something that I hadn't been aware of is that my friend Jamie and then the other roommate and the roommate's boyfriend had gotten into a car accident around the same time before, but around the same time we had signed the lease. The girlfriend, the friend's boyfriend was driving, got into an accident, totaled the car, and Jamie got hurt. Wasn't a huge injury, wasn't anything totally physical. She was totally fine. She walked away, she went to the emergency room, everything was fine. But Jamie got hurt. Whole situation happened after that where there was a lot of hostility between Jamie and the roommate. We're just gonna call the roommate Henrietta. I don't fucking know, that's a name. Just need to give her a name. So between Jamie and Henrietta, there started to be a little bit of hostility that I wasn't aware of. So that whole summer, while no school was in session, but we're preparing to move into this apartment, all of this conflict and tension started to begin brewing between them without me knowing. So August rolls around, we start moving everything in. I'm super freaking pumped. It's gonna be sleepovers every day for 2 more years with my best friends. But then I'm moving in, and everything is kind of like walking on eggshells. Like with Jamie, she's kind of distant, and it's very strange. And with Henrietta, like I don't know her that well, but she's very friendly, and her and I are starting to become more friendly with each other during the first few weeks of being in school and in the apartment together. So the first month passes by, and things are a little weird. Then Jamie finally confides in me that her and Henrietta have been having a lot of tension, a lot of conflict, because she doesn't feel that Henrietta and her boyfriend have treated her very well since that accident, and she's very upset with this, and she cannot believe that they've been through that traumatic event and they aren't sympathizing with her and making sure she's okay, making sure there's like any apologies that they can give to her, just being very, making sure that she is knowing that Jamie is a victim. Oh, it wasn't that traumatic of an event. They were all involved in it. Why, Jamie, are you making this into such a humongous thing that happened like 7 months ago? Everybody is over it. But it was on her mind, and she couldn't get over it. Another month passes by, and Jamie just starts picking fights with Henrietta. Jamie just starts getting nitpicky with everything. She starts slamming doors a little bit every now and then, starts calling her mother on the phone, and starts screaming at her about things that Henrietta's doing. And things just start getting a little bit more aggressive and hostile. And I've never experienced this side of Jamie, so this was very confusing to me. She's always been very helpful, very nice and pleasant. Another month goes by, and she's just blowing up. All the time, screaming at Henrietta. Henrietta doesn't know what the hell to do. She's just a victim. Oh, I thought there was music. She's just, I'm like, it's angry music now. The horror movie is beginning. Henrietta's freaking out because she's like, I don't know what to do. She's freaking out on me so much, and it's beginning to cause me trauma and beginning to make me very worried for like my safety, because Jamie, again, is just running around slamming doors, throwing things, being very aggressive, screaming at Henrietta. Finally, Jamie says one day, I'm moving out of this apartment. I can't be in here. It is awful living with both of you. I haven't done anything. Like, why are you leaving this environment when you have a problem with Henrietta? But why am I becoming a victim of this too? And one day I get home from class to this lengthy text message from Jamie that says, Shauna, I understand that you and I have been friends for a long time, but the fact that
That's it. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a way to get someone off the stage. Jesus. Ruined my pants again tonight, too. So she's sending me this text message saying, Shauna, if you continue to live with Henrietta, we can no longer be friends because I am not going to support you being with her anymore. I don't know. I came to this university because of you. I signed this lease because of you. Now you're putting me in this situation that I wasn't even a part of. I'm not going to get into all of those little details where I can just keep on ranting about how much of a bullshit situation this is. But she ends up coming with 2 of her little support group members while me and Henrietta are sitting on the couch watching Cupcake Wars one evening to collect her belongings, not speak a word to us to try and resolve it, and leave. You've never been silently broken up with a friend while you're sitting on the couch watching Cupcake Wars. If you haven't, give it a shot. You'll fucking find out. You love Cupcake Wars. To make a long story short, after that, I saw her around campus and made eye contact with her once, and then looked immediately down at her shoes and thought they were fucking ugly as shit. And then one time we did make contact to try and get back in touch with each other and resolve things, try to sort this shit out, because to this day, right now, this was 4 years ago, right now, she is still one of my best friends in the entire world, and I have not spoken to her. She is still one of my best friends in the entire world. But we reached out to each other and we tried to sit down and resolve it. But it was one of those, and I'm sure you can all relate to it, it was one of those texts where it's like, hey, haven't spoken to you in a while, would you like to get together and go to like Pizza Hut or something and talk about this? You're like, yeah, sure, I guess that sounds good. I'd love to see you again. And then nothing else kind of happens. You actually don't meet. Nothing, no other communication happens because it's like, sure, you'd like to see each other, but it hurts too much, and you know nothing good is going to come out of it, and everything is kind of at peace now. Because you know why? There's always going to be Facebook stalking. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Sorry that our batteries ran out during your story. Please put your hands together for Cal Smith.
It is, in fact, just Smith. I promise you. It's very simple. I don't know what is going to be more difficult, telling the story or getting from that table back there up to here. It was June 2016, and I was standing in a kitchen in a house I was renting in Westland, Michigan, and I turned to my ex, and I said, maybe you're right. I love you, but I can't do this anymore. So how did we get here? How did we get here? From the woman that I fell in love with and I went on a date with at Steak and Shake and tried to kiss her at the end, and then found out months later when we were dating that she didn't kiss me back because she had to go inside the house to fart. True love. How did we get to this place, though? We started out so great. Steak and Shake, flatulence. It was a great start. I always like to note my identity, and especially for this story, it's very imperative. I am now a non-binary, transmasculine, pansexual, polyamorous person. We don't have time to cover what all that means. You can get out your phones if you need to. But it's important to the story because when I first met this person, I thought I was a cisgender person, and in 2011, I came out as a lesbian. Not a great time to come out, especially living in Indiana where I grew up. Let's start with the pros of this person. This person stood with me through a lot. They stood with me through coming out in Indiana in 2011. And then they also stood by me about a year later when I lost a cousin that was possibly queer, that was being closeted, and then I had been blamed for that suicide and then barred from the funeral. This person had also been there for me while dealing with TERFs in college. This person was always there for me. But this person was also abusive, manipulative, controlling. I lost not my relationship with my family, but it definitely became strained. I lost friendships because it was so controlling, and I ultimately lost a sense of myself when I dated this person between 2011 and 2016. Most of it went all awful, but I guess we'll really talk about all the way up into when I graduated in 2015. I had finally got an opportunity to move away from Indiana. A lot of abuse had already been going on. People don't talk about abuse in lesbian relationships. Apparently no one thinks anyone can be abusive if it's just two women in a relationship. Had been through a lot of situations with her trying to kill herself, which triggered trauma I had already had. And also just had dealt with situations where she'd just leave and run off, and I didn't know where she went. She threatened to kill herself, just lots of manipulation and abuse. So we fast forward to, I graduate in 2015, I get a job offer. We move up to Michigan. She gave up her job so I could move up there, and before all of this, when we first got together in 2011, I tried to come out as bi to her when we first got together. She didn't take that too well. She had a lot of biphobia of her own and kind of freaked out. In 2013, I came out to myself as trans, and I tried to come out to her, and she was the first person I came out to as trans. She kind of freaked out. Over time, she tried to be supportive, and then lastly, I tried to ask for an open relationship, and she kind of freaked out. So knowing all of this before we go up to Michigan, kind of just left it be, and I was ready to focus on my new job I got. While we're there, she starts hanging out with friends and staying out late, and I've been with this person for 4 years, so I trust her. Sure, you're rolling home at 8 a.m., but I don't have any suspicions, Go do your thing. So then we get to December of 2015, and we're getting an oil change at the car shop. And over the past few months, we had talked about what it might be like to have a polyamorous relationship. We abstractly talked about this. So we started expressing who we found attractive. And she said, well, there's this guy. I kind of find him attractive. So I said, let me see him. It goes from, I find this guy attractive to, oh, I'm actually dating this guy, and this guy had sex in our bed, and he's been in our house. I took this as a great opportunity to tell her about the man I was sexting erotically, no nudes, in the UK. She tries to compare these two experiences, and if I'm being completely honest, I did not tell her about the woman I had emotionally cheated on her with, but when you're comparing sex in our bed to me sending long erotic novels to someone in the UK, there's a bit of a mismatch there, so I wasn't completely honest with her. So we start sharing all this, and it's a lot for me to process, and I realize that this person's been in my house, and anytime I've called to come home from work, she's made sure he's left. I try to be cool with this dude, but he's the kind of dude that sits and watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and has one of those laughs like, ha, that makes you want to stab a person. So I try to be accepting. I try to start dating, but anyone that's healthy and ethically polyamorous wants nothing to do with this fucking situation. And rightfully so. So she breaks up with him a month and a half later. Oh, mind you, our Christmas of 2015 was spent not only me being shoved into polyamory, but with my first pregnancy scare. When they had sex in our bed, a condom that I brought home from work because I worked in higher ed and had access to free condoms broke while they were having sex. So that was our first pregnancy scare first. So happy holidays there. We fast forward to February 2016, and she broke up with him, and one night I'm getting ready to go to the bar with a friend, and she says, I need to talk to you. And I say, what's wrong? She's like, I think I'm pregnant, but I think it's for real this time. And I'm like, oh, no, it'll be fine. We already went through one scare. No, she was really pregnant this time. So we take 3 pregnancy tests. She puts the onus on me to call Planned Parenthood to schedule an abortion, in which I had to come up with the money, and she was not working at the time. And people wonder why I have issues with cis men when this guy was unwilling to pay even half for abortion. Come on, we're supposed to be egalitarian here. And she has an abortion around our 5-year anniversary. I was not a great person at the time, said some things I regret. Our relationship had just come to such a place of toxicity, so badly so that she would try to hurt me with a hammer, a knife, weapons. And when I tell this story, people seem really shocked, but I had it so normalized for me for so many years, and I've had martial arts experience that I was just worried about not hurting her and trying to put her down and deflecting whatever she was doing. So when she had an abortion, she had a second boyfriend who I actually love and miss dearly. And he helped to support her, and I had started dating someone else. Come May of 2016, she starts doing I don't know if any of you have heard the Chainsmokers song or not. She likes to break up every night. That's what was happening every night. Breaking up, let's get back together. Breaking up, let's get back together. Meanwhile, I'm in this salaried position where I'm dealing with a transphobic boss. So nowhere is peaceful. Home, not peaceful. Work, not peaceful. And she starts breaking up with me, then getting back together. Breaking up with me, getting back together. I warned her, I said, you're going to push me away. Finally say, no, let's try to stay together. So then I started dating someone, another partner, at the beginning of June. And they were younger, and they had just come out. And due to sexism and being queer, they needed a place to stay. So the weekend that she moves in with me and my partner, that things are rapidly deteriorating, obviously, the day she moves in, she starts a fight with me and says, oh, well, we should just break up. So I'm standing there in the kitchen, I say, maybe you're right. Maybe we should. I love you, but I can't do this anymore. And then that sparks a huge fight about who's going to have the bed, and I was just glad that my other partner was there so things didn't get physical. So then proceeded the couple of months where I let her live with me because she still had her boyfriend in Michigan. I didn't want to make her move back home to Indiana. And I don't know if you've ever lived in a situation with your ex of almost 5 years and your new partner, but it's a little awkward. And what's more awkward is having to sleep on a rug on the living room floor and get up and put on a tie and go into work and act like everything's fine. And then while I was breaking up with her, One of my miniature dachshunds decides to have her legs go and almost needed put down. I start developing food allergies. I'm so stressed out. Food allergies I'm still dealing with to this day. And I am nice enough to let her stay with us, but I don't know how much it wears on a person to carry blankets up and down the stairs. But then you gotta think, I was with a new person, so then throwing dildos in there and carrying them up and down the stairs, it does a lot to a person. It's very stressful. Needless to say, the person that witnessed this breakup that was my new partner said, "Why don't you come to Wisconsin?" So even to this day, almost 2.5, 3 years later, I'm still dealing with the debt that she never wanted to put a bill in any of her name, dealing with financial debt, emotional issues, psychological trauma, being compared to cis men sexually, you name it. I feel like I kind of went through it. All of that trauma caught up with me when I moved here. And I think, breakups are always nasty. And I do give her credit. She already had trauma and some mental health issues of her own. So sometimes I'm not always angry at her. But breakups are always nasty. But I think the one thing we can take is that there's a lesson learned from this for me. And it brought me to where I wanted to be and around the people I wanted to be. And that was here in Madison. So thank you.
Thank you, Cal. Please put your hands together for Timothy Pasinski.
Hello. So, a couple quick things before I start the story. One, it's not uncommon for men to piss themselves when they drink more than 10 drinks. So, cool. Second, the name I'm using today is Alice for the woman I broke up with. She's actually really nice, but just so you know, it comes from Bob and Alice discovered the surreal numbers. So if you have kids and you want to teach them about math, it's real fun. Okay, cool. So how did this all start? I was a senior in high school. I had just moved back home with my mother, which was great. I had gotten out of juvie, which is also great. And I decided that I really wanted to get a girlfriend, which was stupid. And so I, kind of like surveyed the women in my high school. I had recently moved there. And I found one that I thought was rather swell. It just so happened to be that she was like the most popular girl at school. And if you can't tell yet, I'm extremely awkward. So I kind of like started hitting on this girl. She was really smart, did like a bunch of anatomy, I think it's called, and physiology. And I had happened to like get into this college course with her. And so this was kind of like my like segue in. And surprisingly, it worked like really well. And we hit it off, and we started dating. And that was great. She's like really attractive and really, really Catholic. And she really thought I should be Catholic, which was cool. I gave that a go. It was unorthodox. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, and so we did all this. And so it turns out I'm like really scared to meet her parents. Before me, she dated like this dude who was like the star of the football team. He's super muscular. He's like really fucking scary. And he would yell at me sometimes. When I would meet him at parties, he'd be like, "Why are you with my girlfriend?" And I'd be like, "Oh, God. Sorry." So yeah, it was weird. And the funniest thing I think was her parents like are these really like Republican, like hardcore, like conservative folks. And so of course, like me being a fuck, I was like, how am I ever gonna like get along with these people? I'm trying to like date this woman, and they love me, and they were like best friends with my probation officer. So, like basically, I had to like stop going to the courthouse, and on Sundays I would go to mass, hit up my PO, pee in a cup. It was like really convenient, and so. It was like ironically so convenient that like 6 months into our relationship, when I found out I really wasn't into her, I kept kind of dating her. Also not advisable. And it was like for these like really stupid reasons. Like I could sleep at her house. So I like worked a night job. So I'd like come home from school, go do a sport sometimes, and then at like 7 I would go work in a factory till like 2 a.m. And then I would just go over to her place, and her like really conservative parents were like, "No, yeah, you can totally sleep here. Like, you're not gonna sleep with our daughter. Like, just upstairs. Like, it's cool." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks," which is really nice of them, and I'm really thankful for. And through all this, I ended up getting really close to her dad, which I should have known was a bad sign, because I was like a really bad kid. But one thing leads to another. We're kind of near the end of our relationship. We graduate high school, and we go out to like a graduation party, like a bonfire. And so I didn't actually think I was going to graduate high school, let alone like go to college, get a degree, get a job. Like those things are kind of like revelations. So when I like made that first milestone, I was like, holy shit, I did it. I drank way too much beer. Didn't do anything like offensive, really. Kind of. The one thing that I did that was offensive was when I went back to her house, because she had given me a ride home, after she found me, because I got drunk and just decided I really needed to run around. I ran like a mile or two in the country. She like put me on the couch to go to bed, totally fine, I hear. And then I woke up and I had drank so much beer, I had not like peed on the couch, I had like peed through the couch. Which like, I know it's gonna be really hard to ever look me in the eyes after this again. But like, trust me, I figured it out, I just used the mirror. So yeah, and I mean, obviously her mother was horrified. She's like, "You pissed through my couch?" It's not even like a really like a functional sentence, I don't think. And she was mortified, and her dad, who like would be away on work, came back, and I was like, "Fuck, here we go. She's gonna like ream me." I'm so scared. What happened was, he got back. He came in. He's like, "You know, you peed through my couch. We should talk outside." And I was like, "Great, I'm gonna get my ass kicked. This is gonna be fun." Closed the door, and he started laughing. He thought it was fucking hilarious. And then he proceeded to tell a story about, well, I'm actually, in case anyone I know from my hometown ever sees this, I'm not going to tell you what that story was about. But it's about him and his wife, and it had some reminiscence. So that was cool. Anyway, long story short, after this, things don't go very great in our relationship. And as you might imagine, this is probably like a scarring moment for her. It probably should have been a scarring moment for me too, but oh well. And so one day after work, I'm like, I'm gonna break up with her. I'm gonna do it. It's like time. I'm just gonna take a nap first. So, you know, like I need some. Oh God, I'm not talking to the mic really. I need some courage, and so I take this nap. And next thing you know, I'm like up, I'm like got the text drafted, I'm about to send it, and I notice I missed a call from her. And this is, yeah, so if this isn't funny, I'm sorry. But this is my punchline. I said me and her dad are pretty similar. So she called me, and as I was like gonna be like, you know, we should break up, she's like, "My dad divorced my mom." It shouldn't be funny, but like it's really funny because we're just so similar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Timothy.